tonight we've got Jackie Dayberry, we've got CJ, Alex, Dave, Aaron, Jason, and Leah and Clay. And so I'd love, Jackie, would you introduce this fine crew that we've got here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. These folks that are on here are, how do I say, they are an integral part of my team. I could not do this business without them. And there are just a few of them, but we've got several more out there in the field. But like I say, I'm tickled to have them. These people are all dealers of ours, representatives of our product. They've used them, they know what they do, and they can help anybody that wants to use them get started. And so, like I say, we're just tickled to have everybody here. I guess with that, I'll go ahead and start this program because I have a feeling it could get kind of lengthy tonight if we didn't watch ourselves. Again, I'm Jackie Dayberry, and I'm the president of Wind River Microbes, and we're tickled that everybody's joined us tonight. This will be our first soil summit that we have, the first of many. So anyway, we're tickled that everybody joined us tonight.
Sorry.
I heard somebody in the background. But briefly, what I want to talk to everybody about tonight, and if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. So let me do that right quick. Whoop, hang on. Share screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Get it going here. Basically, what I want to talk to everybody about is basically what are microbes. They're little critters that you can't see. They're tiny microscopic organisms that are everywhere. They're in soil, plants, rivers, food, refrigerators. They're on your food. They're in your food. They're also on your hands, lips, utensils. I don't care how much you wash them; they come back. They're just they're pretty persistent little critters. But anyway, basically they're everywhere. And when we're talking about soils, 1 teaspoon of soil contains more microbes than there are humans on this earth. And like I say, that's a teaspoon. We're not talking a tablespoon. We're talking a teaspoon of soil. So that's quite a few billions and billions of microbes in a teaspoon of soil. There are several different types of microbes. You've got everything from bacteria to fungi, which is primarily what we're going to talk about tonight. But then you have things such as the virus, and everybody's familiar with that. We just got through the coronavirus deal, so everybody's familiar with the viruses. But like I said, we're going to talk primarily about the bacteria and the fungi this evening. In order to grow a healthy, productive plant, it requires good soil management. And when you talk about soil management, what are you actually trying to manage in your soils? If you talk to an old-timey farmer, basically what they think of is NPK. But are we trying to manage soil composition or characteristics? Are we trying to manage water? Are we trying to manage organic matter or combat pathogens? And the answer to that is yes to everything. We are trying to do that. But how do we do it effectively? And that's the key. Good soil management consists of managing microbes in the soil, which is what we're all about. Microbes are responsible for a lot of different things, but probably the thing that's first and foremost in everybody's minds is cycling nutrients. So basically they're responsible for the nitrogen, nitrification or nitrogen fixation, as a lot of people call it, the phosphorus cycle or phosphorification, and even the carbon sequestration. These are things that farmers tend to be farmers and even gardeners tend to be most familiar with. Plants and microbes have a symbiotic relationship, which means they rely on each other. they feed each other and they communicate with each other. So the microbes are sitting down there in the soil and they're waiting to work, and the plant says, "Hey, I need some nitrogen." So the microbes are kind of like the pizza delivery guy. You buzz them up on the phone and place your order, and before long you get pepperoni pizza and Canadian bacon and whatever. So basically that's what microbes do. They go out and they source those nutrients that they've converted for plants, and then they deliver them. So the microbes just run that nitrogen right to them when the plant needs it. Then as those microbes cycle up through the plant and deliver that food, as they're leaving, the plant tips them, like we would tip with a dollar bill or $10 if they're good or whatever, but the plant will actually tip microbes with sugars, carbohydrates, and proteins, which they need for food to survive. Now, like I said, these plants and microbes communicate with each other. And it's a very, very intricate system of communication, and it's called quorum sensing. And basically, it's very similar to talking on a walkie-talkie. If you've ever used one, you know you got to be close enough to the other walkie-talkie for it to work correctly. And it, you know, if there's too much distance between you, then all you get is static and you can't hear each other. And the plants and the microbes communicate very similarly. If there is not enough biodiversity or diversified population of microbes in the soil, then the signals can't be sent. So they don't communicate with each other, and then you get what we call an imbalance in the soil. And when you get these imbalances, typically what you get are pathogens. And so microbes help protect plants from pathogens. Now you hear the word bacteria. Bacteria are not all bad. There's a lot of good bacteria. And they can go through this little process called horizontal gene transfer. And this is kind of where our formulas fall into place. Bad bacteria can be turned into good bacteria. And so what happens is if there's too many of a bad bacteria in a particular area, in other words, you have an imbalance. Our microbes can actually convert those bad bacteria into good by this process of horizontal gene transfer. And I'm not going to go through all the details of that, but basically it would be like if I touch Alex and I transfer my DNA to him, he becomes me. So this ecosystem does its own thing in the soil, and we don't mess with it. All we try to do is keep it in correct balance. So with balanced soils, you get healthy roots, you get healthy plants, and ultimately you get bigger yields. Everybody knows that your roots are like your feet. So if you're missing some toes on your feet, you're not going to stand up very well. A root system is the same thing to that plant. Not only is it the mouth of that plant, but it is the foundation of that plant, and that's what everything stems from. And I throw this Bible thing in because Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." And ultimately, with our microbes, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give back to our soils what God gave us in the beginning, so we can leave our soils in better condition than when we got them for future generations to come. And that's kind of what we're all about. Evan, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And I think some of these people probably would like to share some experiences. You can pick the order that you want them to go in, but Alex is right under my picture, so I would say let's start with Alex. And I'll get out of here and quit sharing my screen so that y'all can see each other now. If I can.
Well, Jackie, that was great. Really appreciate you giving us the 30,000 foot overview. Alex Walker, man, I'd love for you to share. I know we've had a couple of opportunities to see some of your plants, and I'd just love for you to share some more of just transformations that you've seen, and just kind of dive into just your perspective with soil and microbes.
You sure? I'm going to, the whole computer here is actually surrounded with plants, but I'm going to pull up a picture and I will start from there when I get the screen share going. We'll go to this one. All right, can everyone see this?
Oh yeah, just fun.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to talk about a couple things that diversified microbes especially do for plants. You know, you see that those little gears over there, the abiotic stress signaling, that's like your temperatures, your rain, the sun, all those things that are not living. And those things have different triggers in the plant. And over time, depending on what kind of situation the plant is in, it can cause different epigenetic expressions. And then those, go further into immune signaling. So the plant can then actually signal to its surroundings and the bacteria pick it up via quorum sensing. It kind of goes into how they use the superhighways to do horizontal gene transfer. And then you have the nutrient and stress signaling. So what the plant is getting versus what it needs, the microbes can, in a way, sense that, because the plant will feed, for example, different species of arbuscular mycorrhiza to receive different kinds of nutrients. So one species may be giving more nitrogen, one species may be giving more minerals, and then one species may be giving more phosphorus. So all those gears working together with its interactions with the microbes. So if you apply a diversified system, you see this little pathogenic infection over here, the microbes are all over the plant and they kind of make a home wherever they're at on the plant, so that you can go down and look at the root microbiome. This is a very, very minimal representation of what the microbes look like on the root system of the plants. I mean, truly, if we had a way to see this in 3D, we would be in awe, because it is such a beautiful thing. Like I've been able to see it on the orchid roots, because like they love arbuscular mycorrhiza, and at times, like if the root is like in a stressful situation and near a piece of wood, you can actually see the extra filaments come out from the root system and like latch on to that wood. And then you like just understanding like how dense the populations of bacteria are on the root system, you'll understand why, for example, soil care has 76 species. Jackie, is that correct? Do we have 76 species in soil care?
74.
74. So like that's why there's so many species in these, because you need that full diversified system for the plant to be happy. So I will grab one of my orchids here for a visual aid. Let me get back where you can see me on the big screen. All right, so here's this. This orchid has been in this pot for 6 months. Can everyone see it well?
Yes.
Okay, so it has been in this pot for 6 months. It was actually before that, a new transplant that was in a tiny little 4-inch net pot. It is actually even coming out of the bottom. I have applied soil care just twice. See, what's nice, especially about orchids, and why I've always been fond of Wind River microbes, is that orchids love, first of all, arbuscular mycorrhiza, but secondarily, the little white coating you see on the roots, you see like some of these roots like have the green tip where they do some of their photosynthesis is done in here as well. But they have this called vellum in here where they can actually set up housing per se for the fungi that they can live in there. And you can actually see a huge difference between like a plant that has been grown in a sterile condition, because it will not grow as vigorously as these will. Their root tips will often turn brown and yucky, because these plants are nearly totally dependent on these things in nature. That's, we'll go back to what Jackie was talking about, viruses. In nature, it's very rare to find an orchid with a virus, because they know, more about microbes than we do, because, they're dependent on them, first of all. But they're surrounded by a balanced microbiome that actually acts like a shield between them and other plants that may be sick because all these microbes are coming in contact with the other plant and the pathogens, and so it never actually can reach the potential host plant. So like another way that it really helps defend them is literally by just living on them. Like, for example, this one I just showed you is growing right next to a plant that has active black rot, which is generally a death sentence for an orchid. And if you have it, it's incredibly contagious, and there's almost no way known to control it except soil care. It's done a beautiful job. A friend of mine actually used it on her entire collection because she was losing them all. Because you will, if you get black rot in your house, especially when you're going into winter and it's really damp and you don't have a balanced ecosystem on your plants, well, the pathogens are just going to have a party. They're going to gang up and they're just going to sweep through your entire collection. And that's what it was doing for her until she applied soil care, and it has all but completely arrested this black rot. And what makes black rot especially difficult is it's actually like arbuscular mycorrhiza. It lives inside the plant tissue. So like it finds a wound and then it penetrates that tissue and then it begins traveling down the plant, digesting it as it goes. But the soil care is also living inside of the plant tissue, will pursue it and arrest it. And it has done beautifully. Like, for example, I have only lost just a couple little root tips on one of these plants. This is the one that actually grows right next to a plant that has root rot and has for 6 months. Has also only been in this pot for 6 months. It went from a little 4-inch pot with no roots. It was a import from Taiwan and had been severely chilled in transport and had lost all of its original roots. And now it has grown enough roots for me to be able to pick it up just by the plant. And it's beautiful. I can tell, especially like what I said before, orchids are incredibly responsive to this. And there's so many other things that are. You can apply soil care to almost anything and make your plants very happy, because like what Jackie was saying, the heaven and earth were first. The earth, the biome was there first. Everything came out of that. And so the plants that were on this earth and that we use for our food will thrive so much better in an environment where that's replicated. And so will any animal, like your pets, whenever you put them in an environment with plenty of microbiota. So here's another one that is completely leafless, actually exists only as roots. It's called Chilachista. And I just hang it out in my living room. They're normally incredibly sensitive and need good airflow, good humidity. But it seems as though ever since I applied soil care, it has completely eliminated its stress response and it never loses any roots. And now it is blooming. 3 nice spikes here. Actually, I think there's a 4th one in there, but it's a little deformed. It is done excellently, just hanging up in the living room, nowhere special. The air has been, kind of dry, and it is done excellently. I think these orchids are just a small window into the full potential that Wind River Microbes has for plants and then further animals.
So you're telling me that plant, that whatever, that ball of roots you just showed us, that's all it is ball of roots with some flower?
Yeah, that's all it does. It exists only as roots. You can kind of see them on the back. It exists only as roots.
Wow.
Yeah. And
where does that come from? I mean, what's the origin of that plant?
This plant is from southern Africa. It grows like on the border between where a desert is and a rainforest. It actually has seasonal dryness, but it doesn't bloom during that period. And
okay,
it is. Go ahead.
And going back to the black rot, is that a root rot? Is what you were saying? I could hear parts of you.
It's like a root rot on steroids because it will tackle the entirety of a plant. It will get in a leaf, it will get in a stem, it will get in a rhizome, it will get in a root, and then it's game over. It is endophytic. It lives inside the plant and will run up its vascular system and destroy it. But soil care
so it's very similar to fusarium in cotton.
Yes, it is an imperfect fungi, just like Fusarium, and it just it makes its own rules. But here comes a superhero, arbuscular mycorrhiza fungi, that just grab a hold of it and break its neck. And that's what we want, right?
Right.
We want microbe superheroes, and well, we've got it here.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's a pretty good segue over to Aaron or he's done some work with cotton, and that takes us from the gardening side of things to the row crop farming side of things. Aaron?
Yeah, we've done a few things with cotton, and we're going to continue to do more things. Trying to get some stuff going on some large acres, some half circles and things, not just a down and back pass. But the down and back passes we run last year have definitely outperformed everybody. And I got guys coming back this year we're going to run your stuff because soil care has made our plants have more vigor, and they just jump starts them, and the cutting the cost of the chemicals and the fertilizers, there's just no reason not to. And I have some pictures that I can show. And I have to have a shout out to CJ for actually fixing some of these photos for me. If I can get over there to them. There we go.
And then share your
My
screen.
bad. There, can you see it? There we go.
There
See,
you
there
go.
we got a full rate of dicamba, and which was the agronomist told him he needed to run a quart, which is 32 ounces to the acre. And if you'll notice, the cotton is about boot high and the weeds are about knee high. And it's pretty hard test, and they're pig weeds. Those things are hard to kill. We've gone from Roundup to dicamba to 2,4-D to glyphosate, Liberty. We've gone from everything. So, and we keep spraying and spraying and spraying and spraying. Everything's starting to get more and more resistant. Well, the picture on the left with the full dicamba rate was a quart. Up until this, I had not heard of putting a quart of dicamba down per acre. A pint, we always was plenty. Well, it wasn't about a week after this little experiment, I talked to another farmer, and he said he would have kicked my butt after showing these pictures to him because he put 48 ounces. He put a quart and a half on. And I could have saved him $15 an acre easily and done the same job, if not better. And you can tell this is the same field because if you look over to the right side, you can see the darker strips and the lighter strips on both pictures, the corresponding, and you can tell it's the same picture. And where we had half the microbes, the plants are yellow and dead. They did not come back. They did not survive. And so that picture right there is actually pretty neat to be able to show people to just put it in every tank full. Even if you do a pint to the acre, that right there was a quart per 100 gallons just as a chemical enhancer.
Now you meant half the dicamba, not half the microbes, correct?
Yeah, he run 32 ounces on one side and then run a pint on the other side.
Yeah,
16 ounces. And there's a lot of things that we're noticing too is, bear with me if I could find this picture, is...
Do you have the picture of that dicamba 10 days later?
Yes, I do. Hang on. It's loading right there. This is the picture that's showing the pint that we put on. And we all know you can get chemical burn if you start putting too much. Even though it is a resistant crop, you can have chemical burns on it and make those leaves droop, and they look 2,4-D or dicamba burnt, really, but they're supposed to be resistant. This stuff never skipped a beat because we A, cut the chemical back, B, added the microbes to it, so we give it more of a jump, and we put less chemical down to protect it a little bit. And so this, I see that picture there.
Yeah, and the cotton didn't wilt.
No, see, that was literally like, I think it was the 5-day mark right there. That's at the 5-day mark. And it was like that across the entire field. Mind you, it was dry, no-till, hard, no rain, no irrigated, just nothing. I mean, it was horrible test actually, but it was great for this because it just showed us that we can stress the crap out of this plant. and still be able to come back with less chemicals and put the microbes on, boost the plant, enhance the chemical to go ahead and kill those big bad weeds that are resistant to a lot of the chemicals we're putting on now. That right there, that guy added $1 to an acre, but I saved him $7, and he's sold it.
What are some other weeds that you found that are tough to kill typically that you've had success with?
We kill Russian thistles with 16 ounces of 4-pound Roundup, which I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but normally a 4-pound Roundup, you run a quart to the acre, try to get that pound to the acre. And we ran 16 ounces and absolutely annihilated some Russian thistles, which are hard to kill because of the circumference and everything of the leaf. There's not very much leaf there to get your chemical on.
Right.
But
I have some questions for you too. He's kind of the cotton man.
sorry, I was trying to, there's a picture I was looking for. It kind of shows a side by side of the wilted cotton where we'd run a half rate and or run a full rate with no microbes, and where we run half rate and had microbes in it. Mind you, that's just a quart per 100 gallons. That's not that's not anything that should be beneficial. It's just almost foliar feed.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
I'm just commenting that Jason may have some questions for you on that, or some comments.
Yeah. We're doing some more testing now in up in the Panhandle of Oklahoma on some irrigated wheat, and we just put down a pint as a foliar type deal, and it's actually done pretty well. The leaves have gotten so much, they're fatter leaved, it's taller, and when I got up there to take pictures, it had wind blew about 50 miles an hour, and yeah, it wind burnt the crap out of everything. But you see that picture there?
Mm-hmm.
If you look it's a horrible picture, but on the bottom left corner, you can see my foot. On the other one, you could blatantly see my foot. It didn't cover up there's dirt. You can see where it's not near as thick. The leaves aren't as thick, nothing. It was absolute. I mean, for being 50 mile an hour wind the day before, I can't believe it did it.
Yeah.
Have you ever reduced the amount of fertilizer you've used on a field?
Yes, we have reduced the amount of fertilizer on the field. And I can show you a picture where his sprayer was running out of microbes on his way back. See there where you can see my
real
foot?
obvious.
Yeah. If you could flip back and forth between those, it's not a whole lot of difference in that picture. But if you flip back and forth between those two, it's actually a lot of difference.
Well, that's what I noticed when we applied it to our wheat. Of course, the very, very first time that I ever applied to my wheat, we ran test strips. So we'd run a 30-foot strip, skip a spot, run another 30-foot. And looking at it from the side, that wheat might have been 3 or 4 inches taller that was treated. But when you really notice the difference is when you stood over the top of it and looked down over the top.
Yeah.
See that there was no bare ground at all in that treated wheat versus the untreated wheat. You could still see soil. The density just wasn't there.
Yeah, and that's what we're noticing is the leaves being wider and darker green. And yes, it's about 2 inches taller. It was put on 5 days prior to the pictures, but it's just being 2 inches taller, and it's stooled out a lot more, which makes it thicker. And then the leaves being denser and thicker, whereas they got more photosynthesis to be able to make a better plant. If there's more stools, you get more heads on the wheat, which means more production. And if you got more photosynthesis, which means you're getting more sugars and everything back into the soil to feed the microbes, which makes those happier. And mind you, this was a pint to the acre. It wasn't even the full recommended gallon to the acre.
Right.
And it did it in 5 days.
Typically what you see, and I'll just let everybody watching know that typically what you see within the first 24, certainly 48 hours is you see chlorophyll change in those plants. that chlorophyll the color will become a deeper, darker green. And I don't care whether you're putting it on corn, cotton, tomatoes, or, you know, some petunias or something. You're going to see a chlorophyll change. And chlorophyll is a measure of good health. The prettier green colored your plants are, the better, you know, better the health of the plant is.
One thing I really like about it is in containers, like for the home gardener, you know, hanging baskets. I don't know if anyone here has ever grown hanging baskets, are kind of a pain because they dry out and they go, well, I have now gone like 3 days without watering one of the hanging baskets. It's dry. I've picked it up. That plant is not wilted and it's still a beautiful green, has plenty of flowers. Although, you know, of course, the growth is reducing, but it seems to also vastly improve the drought resistance of the plants. I think we can also kind of see that in one of Evan's pictures of the cotton that was treated versus untreated. It looks like the ground is pretty dry. Evan, was that or Aaron, was that correct?
Yeah, the ground was. Yeah, we had like 4 inches of rain from April to I think September last year.
Yeah, you can definitely tell those plants were drought stressed, but the ones that are treated are so much happier. You know what she was talking about. You can see that much better color on them, and then, you know, the flowers were different as well. Like the plants are obviously much happier with the microbes on them.
Well, and then on top of it, if it's a little bit thicker and denser, that also means it shades the ground a little bit better, which means you're going to not get near as much sunlight and wind down there on the ground for evaporation, which means you'll be able to retain a little bit more moisture.
Yeah, it's just a positive feedback system all the way around because, you know, you retain more moisture, you retain more nutrients, the roots are happier and they're cooler, and transpiration does, you know, so much better all the way around them.
Now, along that line, I want to pop in here and say one thing, because I get a lot of questions about, okay, well, I live on the river and I have nothing but pure sand for soil. And then I get out in Aaron's area where it's just, you know, it's a solid clay. Will soil care work in both of those different types of soils? Absolutely, they will. And I'm no scientist. I'm not a biologist by any means. But it works. It will actually take sand particles and it will weld them together, and it takes clay particles and it breaks them apart, so you get some better aeration down through that soil. But
fungi is a wonderful thing.
You
know how it's just like, you know, it's got to survive, but then it's like, hey, my friend here also needs to survive, so it like breaks it all apart and creates nice little superhighways for the plants to be able to get water nutrients that may be 2 or 3 times further away than what it could normally get on its own. It's just like the mycorrhizal fungi that is in this mix is just fantastic.
And it's both endo and ecto mycorrhizae.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
That nice little boot on those roots.
What was that, Aaron?
I said, I like the fact that it's a balanced deal, because a lot of people will get on there and say that you need mycorrhiza for root growth stimulants. Well, if you get too much mycorrhiza, then the ribosine can't get in. And so being balanced like that, it's a complete deal where you don't have to add anything else or be able to have to look for, oh, I need this or oh, I need that. No, you just spray soil care on it, even at transplants, or whether it be hanging baskets or crops, you know, big ag. It's just a complete balance of things. And that's what we're noticing, is the balance of it is so well that we're able to just spray it and it's a one hitter quitter and we're done.
Yeah, you don't over apply those monoculture varieties and choke the system, because, you know, our truck drivers are important, but also consumers using the highway is important. If you just fill the highways up with truck drivers, well, then you have a lot of traffic jams because nobody can go anywhere. You know, that's what I see whenever you're using one species over and over and over. You don't have that diversity, so your nutrient flow and your information flow is not as good.
Exactly. And another question that I get kind of along this lines is, you know, well, you live in South Central Oklahoma. How's this going to work for me up in Nebraska or up in New York? 50% of the microbes in our formula are typical soil microbes. You'll find them in any teaspoonful of soil. The other half of those microbes are not typical soil microbes. And they are very susceptible to that little process that I termed horizontal gene transfer, which means that they work with any indigenous soils. So you can apply them in soils over in Brazil or Costa Rica or South Texas or up in Montana, and they'll work. and it's nothing that you do. They work it out themselves in their own little ecosystem. So I wanted to pop in and say that because I do get that question quite often. I think Clay and Leah had some we're going to flip flop here from row crop back to container farming, but I think Clay and Leah had some pictures of some plants and trees and stuff that they've used soil care and biosoil on. Are you there?
Hi. Yeah, let me see if I can find them for you. We're on my phone instead of the computer.
Oh,
But I did put in a quick question, like while I'm finding those, if one of the guys wanted to answer it. And when we're talking about home gardening, we had some clients ask, do they need to do anything if they bought something at a nursery and then they brought it home and they were going to bring it into their garden? Are there any concerns bringing it? Like, will it bring pathogens? Will it bring something back to their established garden or their established
Yes.
plants at home? And
yes,
how can
I would say let's let Jason answer that from a. Jason's kind of on the research end of things. He has a degree in cotton, but it's still if it's got a root system, it relates.
Sure.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you answer that question?
You will have some pathogens that come in from, bringing in from a big box store or a nursery or something of that nature. But if you treat those things or treat that with this horizontal gene transfer and things of that nature with the soil care or biosoil, sorry, that it will, I think that will alleviate that stress to that plant, and it will take care of that potential threat that is coming in from that one, that one plant that you're bringing in. Alex may be able to talk a little bit more about that, but I think that's the basic overview of that question.
Yeah, I would say that oftentimes I'm always nervous about bringing root rot home because it is so common because of the way that big box stores get a lot of their plant material is in like hyper monocultured, over sterilized, and then in the transferring process, you pick up a lot of especially resistant pathogens that, like, I found a few root rots that could not even be treated with some very powerful fungicides. They didn't go away because, when you get plants from those environments that are super sterilized, it's like the super bugs that get into our hospitals. They're used to everything except a diversified microbe system puts them in check because they can't escape. They can't take over a system that's already filled. They can't leave their niche, and then through horizontal gene transfer, especially if the bad bacteria are capable of doing that with the surrounding bacteria, they notice that, hey, all these things that I used to do no longer serve me. So I'm going to take in this information from my neighbors and use it in a way that serves me, and it becomes part of the system itself. So you got to be careful whenever you bring home plants from the big box stores or like any other nursery, because there may be a pathogen lurking in it that can spread to your other plants. But that's why we have soil care and biosoils, because they completely eliminate those problems in nursery trade stock.
Does that answer your question, Leah?
Oh, that's perfect. Yep. And I've got one of the pictures that I have that everybody really likes. So let me find it, and then I'll put it on the screen share here.
Just quickly on that root rot, the big box stores, they really like to make the flowers and everything that they have aesthetically pleasing so people will purchase them. So you have, they water a lot, and that's where that root rot will typically come in.
Yeah, I noticed, especially in the stress of moving, you get a plant that's susceptible to the disease, and then it gets exposed to all sorts of things in transit, and then it gets the disease, and then, it gets way overwatered once it gets somewhere, or stressed even further, or not watered enough. And it's not being treated with those fungicides like it was before, and whatever wants to creep in is just going to jump in there and take over. It's just going to become a pathogen or become a problem.
Yeah. There are some tomato plants.
Yeah, but I was going to share this picture. This was actually 2 tomato plants that were started from seed, side by side, and just at home garden. And if you can tell, the one on the left actually had the soil care, and it had the 1 ounce to 1 gallon ratio. And then the one on the right did not have soil care at all, but it was the exact same soil, exact same time planting. Unbelievable.
How many times
results.
did you apply soil care?
A couple times.
Just twice?
Yep.
It's quite a difference. I
That's
really,
a big difference, isn't it?
yeah, it is. I really, especially I can see that, you used, you reuse some dirt in those, which is fine if you use a diversified microbe system. Actually, it kind of plays into why no-till is so good. They can actually follow the old root system of plants, but if you get plants that don't have diversified microbes on them, you're going to run into problems because pathogens can persist from year to year. But if you use soil care, that plant doesn't have to keep fighting on its own. The microbes do all the fighting for it. Any pathogens that are in there, it eliminates, and then it can help it follow those old roots of your past plants and then fill up that space a whole lot quicker, as you can obviously see in this. I really like how it really helps the root system not have to struggle it through situations that people often put them through in container gardening. They're exposed to excess heat, not enough water, too much water. And that's why I really like soil care, because it just makes everything so easy. Like why I was showing this orchid earlier, like this is not an easy orchid to grow, but it's just hanging out in my living room now that I have used soil care on it a couple times, and it's doing great. So it just makes everything, it's just like, I really think that almost all of, if not all of, Wind River Microbes present and future products are just common sense products. Like duh, we should be using this all along. I've been thinking that for years. Like before I discovered Wind River, I was like, why hasn't someone made this? Then I found it. I was like, am I dreaming? Did this happen? I was so excited. So it's just a common sense product. You can see that just by looking at the picture. Like, duh, this is a great thing. This is potentially bigger than fertilizer.
Hey, Jackie, what are some different applications for soil care in that container gardening?
What do you mean different applications? I mean, you talking
what can't it do?
Or what you can apply it to, or?
Yeah, so you can do it on the outside. You could.
Oh yeah. You can do soil applications. You can do foliar. A lot of people will do a foliar feed or a foliar spray. The only thing that you don't want to do is dump 1 gallon of concentrate on one plant, because it will grow so fast that it will literally explode overnight.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. And kind of what she was saying about the foliar feeding. It's a great adjuvant for anything. Like your plant, like it's like struggling for phosphorus in a container, because like once it runs out of phosphorus, the microbes that can't just pull it out of the air. They can pull nitrogen. If you other think that there's no phosphorus present, you got to add it. So I find the microbes are excellent at being an adjuvant. So you can add your phosphorus in there, and not have to worry about it running out, not have to worry about the plant taking up too much. The microbes regulate that, and they kind of do like they do in the sand. They kind of stabilize it and create nice superhighways to feed the plant. And I find that's also nice in foliar applications. It's why the dicamba is more effective. It kind of opens that door for the plant to take up nutrients. So if you needed to foliar feed for any reason, you could do it with the microbes, and I find that the uptake is phenomenal. And it generally, if it's something that is not meant to harm the plant, won't.
Right. And we were kind of talking about stresses whenever Leah asked that question about buying a plant from a big box store or nursery or whatever. Not only does that have to do with pathogens, but it also has to do with stresses. And I think Dave did some playing around with microbes during their last freeze. And he might be able to tell us kind of what he did and what the outcome was of his little trial. Dave, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Scoot up close to your
Just
microphone.
a little closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, great.
Hold the phone up. Yes, we had three freezes in a row, with the one in the middle being 26 degrees. Everybody was covering everything over here, and it was like, I got too much stuff to cover, and seeing what this stuff does. So I wanted to take and check it out. So I used my wife's roses as a test plot and some peach trees and pretty much everything else that was in our yard. And we had pretty hard freeze. The ground one night was almost all white, and I can try to share. This is my first time using Zoom and stuff, so I'm not sure how to do all this. I'll try to share some pictures of the blooms, and this will be after the second freeze. I didn't get them after the third. I have them on my phone for last night, but I didn't get them uploaded to the computer. So, but they did good. Let me try here to find them.
And while he's looking up those, I will go ahead and attest myself to the stress reduction factor. Whenever we're talking back about this orchid I was talking about, it had just come through shipping in a very cold season. And normally whenever a tropical species like this one from the Amazon goes through a cold spell, you normally get a shock to where they won't do anything for like 2 or 3 months. It was normal to just sit and wait. And I noticed that once I apply the microbes, there's no waiting. It just continues to grow beautifully. And as you can see, it completely filled up that pot now in just 6 months. And normally, like whenever you get an orchid like that in the fall or any other sensitive tropical plant, it'll shock to the point that it won't continue growing until that 6-month mark. But I really feel that if the big box stores were to start using, say, soil care, not only would that reduce pathogenic problems, but it would make their plants healthier, more vigorous, and reduce their stress levels to the point where they could be continually appealing to the customer and last longer on the shelf because they're not stressed, they're not wilting, they're not falling apart, and there's no pathogens taking over because, well, Wind River Microbes soil care or BioSoil has fixed most of those problems.
Yep. Did you find your pictures, Dave?
Yeah, now I can't get. Oh, there we go. Sorry, folks.
That's all right.
Um,
Hit the green button. There you go.
See that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the blooms after the second freeze and before the third freeze. But that was under or at the next morning from the 26-degree night. And I was surprised to see bloom still.
You can see that even the anthers didn't get frozen.
The roses, everything, I was amazed.
And these were uncovered, correct?
These were uncovered. That's in the middle of my yard. So
yeah, out in your yard is pretty open. There's no trees or anything nearby. Like these are out in the open.
Yeah, pretty much full sun. There's a fence behind it, but maybe 30 yards away, 20 yards away.
Yeah, no buildings, nothing. So this, of all things, should have been burnt. We had some stuff at my work that we only covered up was actually near a warm greenhouse, but still got burnt.
Let's see. Was there anything else that you wanted to see?
That's great. I know you had done some testing with freezing, so with this crazy winter that we had here.
Earlier, you said I've kind of been testing this stuff all over the place, and you were talking about the clay. And can you hear me okay?
It's hard to hear you.
Is that better?
A little better, yes.
How about now?
Yeah.
It might feed back because I've got the volume all jacked up. You were talking about clay earlier, and my parents-in-law had some dirt delivered, and they had a big clod, and we tried to break that thing up and couldn't get it broken up. I said, "Can I try an experiment?" They said, "Sure." So I took this big clod of clay home and put it in a 5-gallon bucket and soil care on it. reduced down the normal 30 or 1 ounce per gallon. And I wasn't really expecting the next morning, but when I came out the next morning, I just tapped it with a shovel and it just fell apart. So, kind of crazy, but it will break up the soil. And so I did want to say that.
Yeah.
CJ told me to push the stuff, and so I'm pushing it. And
Yeah, I would agree
saying,
with what Dave is saying, that like soil care and biosol, I would say are very efficient clay breakers. Absolutely. If not more effective even than gypsum.
Yeah. Well, I think CJ can probably talk a little bit about the bioswale in trees because his wife raises elderberries.
Oh, yes, she does. Actually, I'm going to show some videos. I've got some of the photos of the elderberries up here. Give me just a second. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So this right here was a test just to see what the root increase would be on seedlings. We have a rather large greenhouse and grow plants. These are squash plants. They are from the same seed packet. The dirt was shipped already in the cubes, same packaging, everything. And you can just see the difference in between the root growth that we experienced on the ones we treated versus the ones we did not. It's pretty miraculous, actually. I've had several nurseries inform me they're seeing 30% more root and more plant growth in their first 2 weeks. This is one of my wife's elderberries. She traditionally would watch for root bound to up pot. As you can see, this went past root bound, but she wasn't showing the normal issues. So she had to redo the way that she chose when to up plant her pots. It had grown out the bottom of the pot and was actually growing on the ground where it was at. These are elderberries. We use biosol, soil care, depending on which system we're running them in, but you take a cutting of the branch and you basically, it will root. Our rooting process kicked up quite a bit when we started using this product, to the point that my wife is actually having to watch because they're growing too fast. We were just in the greenhouse the other day and she has some 3-gallon pots that she just up potted to the 3-gallon ones about a week ago, and the roots are already growing out of the bottom on them. It's been awesome for root growth, development. I heard from one of our nurseries, they were doing cuttings of Jacob's ladder, and by using this product, they cut 10 days off of the rooting process for those plants, which in their case is huge because they take an order and fill it. So every 10 days, they do better and better. This is some of my wife's parsley. You can see the roots here. This was the real test for it. You can see right here, these sticks are the same size. She did this with a dozen of each, testing them with the soil care, without. You can see the one that was treated with the soil care grew a lot larger. But the biggest deal is it flowered. So these plants traditionally don't really put on fruit until your 2nd or 3rd year. And this was about 3 months after they got potted into this. So she saw a rapid growth uptake. It developed better. Just overall health of the entire plant was better. You can see here just some other cool root pictures from her in the garden working on stuff with seedling starters. But we've overall seen just a lot of development in our rooting. The growth's better. The plants grow better. Leah was talking about bringing in things from big box stores. One of my favorite things to do now is to go shop their It's Dead rack, and we'll bring those home, shoot them with microbes, and within 2 or 3 days, they're back up and look like they were brand new. I keep telling her, I'm like, don't buy the expensive ones, just buy the ones that are near dead, and it will work out just fine in the end.
Have any of your nurseries testified to the fact that it completely eliminates damp off in seedling trays?
I haven't heard much from I've had some growers that have informed me that. They've also informed me the germination rate is insane. I don't have the photo here, but I found a package of tomato seeds that were in our attic from 7 years ago was the expiration date on it. And I was going to throw them out, and I thought, what the heck, let's just put some soil care on them and see what happens. And I got over a 90% germination rate on them. which you don't put seeds in the attic of a house. I'm not sure how they ended up there. Somebody took a seed bag up there when we were moving and just dropped it there and left it.
CJ, you want to talk a little bit about the difference between soil care and biosoil?
Yeah, I can do that. I can't figure out how to get off my screen share, so I'm just going to leave it on that photo. Something happened and part of Zoom disappeared on my end. So the main difference in between the two is biosoil is going to have a few more microbes in it that help with the tree systems. And Alex can probably talk a lot more about this than I can. I didn't go to school for this. I've just learned by using it over and over again. My wife has a fruit orchard in the bottom, and I had contacted Dave about testing that freeze thing. She's got 35, 40 trees down there. And every year since it's in the valley, we get a frost and they freeze all the blooms. And so I'm waiting. We may get through this year for the first time without having a freeze, which I'm kind of bummed about, but at least Dave got to test it because I was like, theoretically, this should work. But the only way to find out is to actually do it and see what happens.
Last April, we had a cool spell for forever. We actually had tomato plants in the ground and it hit 28 degrees, and I hit them with soil care and seaweed extract mixture, and they acted like nothing happened. They didn't even shock. They just kept going. So, you know, we were talking about the stress balance of plants earlier. You know, we were talking about how adding in the right beneficial microbes really seem to alleviate plants of their stresses. So that's why, you know, biosoil is especially important for tree health, is because they're kind of deeper penetrating and they can colonize different habitats further down in the soil, and they have species that more readily pair with woody shrubs and, you know, can create a better balance down in the soil. I've really noticed a big difference actually in woody tropicals as well. It just seems something about how their roots develop. The species of microbes seems to even be able to coat and allow to branch older roots. You know, it isn't just branching from the root tips. The older roots are more open to branching as well. It seems to stimulate more root growth from things like for example, the orchids normally don't branch off in the roots, and I'm seeing almost all of these at some point branch off. It just seems to encourage perennial plants, you know, like
CJ, do you have that picture of Brian's corn? When he,
Give me just a second. I can pull that up. It'll take me a second.
the reason I say that is because I talked about the chlorophyll change, and I thought that was a really good picture of showing what happens almost immediately.
Did it just share it?
Yeah, we can see it.
So yeah, you can see right here, this is a farmer in Illinois, and he took his sprayer, sprayed 60 feet, skipped 60 feet, sprayed it, so forth. And I had asked him, hey, how's it look? And he said, it's phenomenal. I was like, can you send me a picture? And this is what he sent me. He said, this is every line where the two lines meet. This is what he saw. And you can see over here on the right where there was no soil care treatments, you've got yellowing, you've got dead leaves. Other side were green. You even have where the corn is shooting down some roots right down in here. And I mean, looking at this is beautiful soil compared to Oklahoma. I don't have anything that dark unless it has oil spilt on it here.
And we have some of that too.
Yeah, we do have some of that too.
Yeah.
But this did great. He said his germination though on his corn, let me see if I can find this photo real quick. I think it's in here. His corn germination, he said, had dropped, and I want to say it was by the beginning of June, his corn was already 60 inches tall.
Wow.
Which was just insane. He said from the time he put it in the ground to the time it was popping up was around 4 or 5 days.
And back to biossoil and corn, I did an experiment myself. It was actually, I didn't even think to take a picture beforehand. Please forgive me, all of you. I regret doing it afterwards. There was a spot of soil that had some long-term weed killer put on it. And normally, you know, you plant something in that, it's just going to die. So the corn not only came up in 3 days, every single seed I put down germinated, and every single one of those plants got to about 8 foot tall that year. It seems that the bioswale completely mitigated the effects of the harsh chemicals that were in the ground. By the time the plants were 6 inches tall, you couldn't even tell that they were in a stressful soil situation. The soil was not only sprayed with those chemicals, but it was wet all the time, and they were completely unfazed.
Wow.
Part of the reason I asked Dave to also do this test, what started it was last year I had 2 tomato farmers. They were a father and son. They lived 1 block away from each other and grew in hoop houses. The son had started using soil care on his tomatoes. The father, traditional farmer, really didn't want to. So we had a late sudden freeze, like out of the blue, abnormal freeze. The father lost all his tomato plants. The sons wilted slightly and popped back up. And so then I jumped on the phone and called some other farmers that had put their tomato plants outside. And I talked to one, and he said all of his plants fell over. He said they were all dead, I thought. And he said 7 days later, new growth from the ground started popping up from all these. And they hadn't been in the ground that long. I mean, a couple of weeks max since they had planted them. We'd hit the time when normally we're safe from freezes, and just had a freak freeze come in. So that's what started this whole, hey, how well do microbes protect the plant from cold weather?
Right. Yeah. Well, does anybody else have any other questions or anything else to say? Evan, do we have any comments coming in? Or
Yeah. So Rachel and Wesley Howe asked, when is the best time of year to spray microbes on your lawn, and how often?
That depends on what's in your lawn. If you have a warm season grass like fescue, or not fescue, Bermuda or zoysia, you're going to want to apply mid or late April. And then if you have fescues or any other cold weather grasses, you're going to want to apply in the fall.
well, I'm going to kind of adjust that just a hair. And I'm going to say that there is not a bad time to apply microbes unless it is freezing. If those microbes, if you're spraying it and they're going to freeze before they hit the top of your grass, don't spray it. As long as they have a chance of getting in the ground without freezing, any time is a good time to spray.
Yeah, no, also valid.
Yeah, we've got farmers down in South Texas. Of course, the temperature is a little different down there, but they'll spray in December, you know, and I've been known to spray mid-December here. As long as as long as when I'm running that sprayer and those droplets are coming out of that sprayer, they're not turning to little ice balls before they hit the ground, you can spray. And those microbes will actually generate their own heat. You can go in our warehouse in the when it's freezing outside, and it'll be 15 degrees warmer, just not because of the building, but because of the microbes themselves. You know, the outside temperature might be 15 degrees, but when you go in that building, those totes are just sweating because they do generate their own heat. It's kind of cool.
I would agree with Jackie, because just because the top of the plant is dormant, your root system in the ground for Bermuda grass, on your rhizomes and things, your nodes underneath the grass will still have photosynthetics in it, and they still will be producing, and they will uptake those, and start a symbiose with those microbes underneath the ground. And you're going to hit yourself running in the spring, or that plant will be more ready to do that. So at any time, I think I would agree that it would be a good time to apply those microbes.
And along that line too, Jason, we're going to have some other summits, and we'll probably get crop specific with some things. But I'll have farmers ask me all the time, well, do I need to apply to my field before I plant my cotton or corn or whatever, or can I apply it in furrow? You know, what's the best way to apply that? And it all depends on what you want to do. A lot of those farmers don't want to take an extra ride over the field. So they will actually mix soil care with their liquid fertilizer and run it in furrow through their, apply it directly to where that seed's going in the ground.
Yes.
Not to mention using it in conjunction with your fertilizers also provides the microbes with a little food themselves, gives them a little boost whenever they get into the soil.
Absolutely. Yeah, because in the whether you get it in a tote or a 6,000 gallon tanker, or you get it in one of our small quart bottles, those microbes are dormant until they have a food source. So basically, they're asleep until you give them something to eat, and then it's like teasing me with a ribeye steak right in front of my nose.
Or eating in front of you while you're hungry.
Or eating in front of me while yeah.
So Rachel and Wesley said, how often and can you do too much? That's pretty broad.
You can apply too much is if you dump concentrate on one very, very small area or one small plant. You can dump concentrate on your grass and it's not going to hurt it.
You just have to mow a lot.
It will. The very first time I applied it, let me tell you, I got a little overzealous and I probably put down 2 gallons per acre, and I cussed myself. I did. Because I was mowing every 2 days. And I mean, it was just as thick every 2 days. Beautiful yard, but yeah, it will make it grow. Any other questions, Evan?
That's all I see right now.
Okay. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, I think we'll kind of wrap it up and throw this thing on YouTube and see if there may be some other questions that people have off of YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if y'all can think of anything we haven't covered, like I say, we're going to get more crop specific as we go. And we kind of have to get our feet wet.
Well, Jackie, why don't you wrap us up and just tell us, where do we go to find online and find nearby, and who we'll be talking to?
Well, we have a website. It is windrivermicrobes.com. And if you're wanting to order online, we as a manufacturer do not sell direct to customers. However, there is a link on our website where you can find online or find nearby, and you can click on those links and you'll see where our dealers are located. If you have any questions, phone numbers on the website, and you're also welcome. Our dealers are listed on the website, so you're welcome to call the closest dealer to you. If you don't have one close to you and you call our office, we'll put you in touch with somebody. We're all about that personal service, and I get people that tell me all the time I like to micromanage because I'm personally involved with the customers. But I want to make sure that what we're telling people and the way they're using our products are going to work. We don't want to feed anybody a line of bull, and I certainly don't want to sell something to somebody that they don't need. So that's just kind of the way I am. I've had the premise from the get-go that I will not put the screws to a farmer or somebody trying to grow their own veggies. I can't do it. I've had too many people try to do it to me. So like I say, I'm not going to do that to somebody, but we would be happy to put you in touch with somebody that can help you and hopefully get somebody that's close to you where they can have some hands-on with you. And a lot of people need to be, kind of handheld and walk through some of this stuff. And that's perfect. We're into that. We're here to help. And ultimately we're here to help you save money and help you grow the best possible crop you can. So windrivermicrobes.com.
And we're going to have, like Jackie said, more virtual summits, specific crops, may go into different methods, but I just want to encourage you guys, learn as much as you can. And if you find someone you really liked, reach out to them, find them on Facebook, find them as a dealer, on the Wind River Microbes website. And we also have the Dirty Talk podcast, where our goal is to have these real conversations, share real stories, and to demystify microbes. So you can find the Dirty Talk podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, all sorts of places, and on YouTube. So appreciate you guys coming out tonight, and we look forward to finding more ways where we can share about how microbes are changing the world. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys next time.